Hi, everyone. My name is Emily Manahan. I'm a master teacher at the A. Sophie Rogers School for Early Learning at Ohio State in the College of Education and Human Ecology. We're part of the Schoenbaum Family Center located in Wyland Park in Columbus, Ohio. I am here tonight to present to you potty training strategies and routines. This is just going to be a short little walkthrough together. I know that potty training can be really stressful. It can be a big topic of conversation. It's something that a lot of people have a lot of personal feelings associated with. And it's also something that people love to give parents advice about. And of course, everyone who's ever had a child did it exactly the perfect way, and they are very willing to tell you about it. So we kind of wanted to put this together just to kind of lessen a little bit of the fear around potty training and give kind of an idea of our philosophies behind it and what research shows is the best and easiest way to help your child go through this transition. So I'll try to make sure I cover most of the bases, but at the end, my email address will be on there. So please feel free to reach out. Um, just as with anything else in being a parent or being a teacher, there is usually this beautiful, lovely laid out roadmap, and then there are actual children and the way that they actually grow and interact, and everyone is different and your child has their own special weirdness, just like the rest of us do. So let's talk through some of the common challenges, some of the things that you can look for as indicators as your child being ready. And I'll try to make sure that I don't ramble too much because I'm great at that. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that you can see the presentation. Um, it'll just be a quick walkthrough, and then I will try to make sure to answer some commonly asked questions at the end. All right. All right. So here's a picture of one of our children at the school interacting in the bathroom. Something that you'll notice right off the bat is in being a child care center, we have the luxury of tiny sinks and tiny toilets and everything being the child's size, which is a wonderful approach to potty training, but is not always super feasible. Um, so while having everything child size is great, sometimes you don't want to install a new sink at your home. So our objectives today are: what are the potty training indicators? How do you know that your child is getting ready to start the potty training process? Circumstances that might affect their readiness, why a child could go from really seeming super interested in going to the bathroom to not interested at all, sometimes within a day. And how do you approach things like that? Strategies for making potty training as successful as you can for yourself and for your child. We sometimes joke in my classroom about whether we're potty training the children or they are potty training us. And a lot of that has to go with some of those strategies that we use. And then some of the common challenges of potty training. What are things that a lot of people run into as they're going through this process with their child? So let's start with: when is your child ready to begin using the bathroom? There's a lot of books that have very clear numbers and ages assigned to potty training readiness. Some books say you should start as early as 18 months. Some books say 2 years old. Some say whenever the child is ready. Some say you should be able to knock it out in 3 days. So it's a lot of contradicting information. So I want to kind of walk you through signs, regardless of age, but more focused on ability and readiness for your child to start the potty training process. So one, like I mentioned a little bit, you want to take into account the age of the child. There's always a story of someone who's 1 year old or 16-month old hopped on the toilet and was potty trained right then and there, and it was never a question. And I think those are one in a million situations. I kind of think of a story from my childhood. I couldn't ride a two-wheeler until I was 7 or 8, but I had a younger brother who, to appease him when he was 3, my parents took the training wheels off of his bike, mostly to teach a lesson and show him that he wasn't ready and that he'd fall down. And he hopped on that thing and rode around the backyard like he'd been doing it his whole life. So the age of the child is important in understanding that there is a space where the child is just too young and doesn't have the cognitive skills or the communication skills to be able to tell you when they have to go to the bathroom, or when they can feel their body going through the process. And that's when that joke of whether you're being potty trained or the child's being potty trained kind of comes in. We don't want to be in a situation where you are sprinting to the bathroom every 30 minutes with your child to hopefully hold them over the toilet and catch their pee. That is going to turn into a lot of frustration for you as a parent. The child really doesn't have any autonomy on what's going on over the situation, so they may not be interested in continuing. So I would generally say that around 2 is when you can start looking for these early indicators. And then those early indicators really are interest. Does the child care at all about being in the bathroom? A lot of this starts with children being really interested in the sink, and wanting to wash their hands all the time, wanting to figure out how to push the soap dispenser, maybe picking up the lid and putting it down. These are all things we don't really want to think about too much right now. But children just being interested in the bathroom is a really big indicator that you could start laying the groundwork for those later potty training skills. If the child likes the idea of sitting on the potty and you know for a fact they're not ready to actually potty train, let them practice climbing up by themselves. If you feel comfortable having your child in the bathroom with you while you're using the bathroom, just tell them what you're doing. We all know a lot of kids won't leave us alone in the bathroom anyway. So let them know. Matter of factly, I don't wear diapers. I pee in the potty. When I go in, I pee. I wipe myself, I flush the toilet, whatever it is. Just kind of develop into that interest a little bit. If your child really enjoys being in the bathroom, you can sit and read a book on the potty. Does it matter whether or not they're actually using it? Not really. It's mostly just about building a level of comfort in the bathroom. It can also be kind of a scary place for some kids. It's loud. We've all been in a public toilet that flushed and it felt like 75 gallons of water was being pulled through. So it's a lot of new sounds, a lot of things that maybe can be scary out of context for a child. It can also be something that we have a lot of feelings tied to. So the bathroom can turn into this mystical place of great importance that the child doesn't really quite understand, but they know that there's something really important about going into the bathroom. And for some kids, that can be super motivating, but for others, it can feel like a lot of pressure. And it can create a power struggle around the bathroom that you just really don't want to be a part of. Knowledge of wetness or bowel movement. The child needs to be able to understand what's happening in their body before they're able to really start potty training or any sort of toilet training. They need to be able to feel the differences before they would be able to then tell an adult or indicate themselves that they needed to use the bathroom. That also ties a lot into their communication skills. Can that child communicate other situations to you? I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm sad, I'm happy. If the child doesn't have the skills just yet to communicate their needs, even if it's sign language, some children develop their language skills late, but they can understand the feeling in their body. So they can give a potty sign um, to tell you that they need to go. So it doesn't necessarily have to be physical words, but the child does need to be able to very clearly express their needs before you're really going to have any success potty training. Other than that, it's mostly guesswork. If the child can't communicate that they need to go, it then becomes on the parent to run a timer and hope that they catch the child in the right time, or watch the child very exclusively around the home to notice um, when they're going to go. Um, I also can point out in there, knowledge of wetness or bowel movement can also mean, like, has your child started to go hide behind something when they need to poop? Um, does your child immediately start tugging and pulling on their diaper when they're wet? All of these are signs that your child is starting to understand that they've had a bowel movement, need to have a bowel movement, are wet. And these are all things that you can very much encourage. So you can start asking your child, "Oh, did you poop?" And checking in, giving them the real answer. "Oh, yeah, you did. You told me. Let's go and take care of that." Um, lets you know then that the child at least has an understanding that their body is doing something different. They understand that something's happening. So that's a great time to encourage the, "Oh, it looks like you're squatting down. Are you pooping? It looks like you are. Do you want to come try to sit on the potty?" And then you let them decide that yes or no, either way. The ability to follow directions. This might sound a little harsh when you're talking about 2, 3, 4-year-old children. Um, but really, it's a matter of a child being able to feel successful in a challenge that's put ahead of them. If your child is only able to follow one step directions at a time, then you need to be really cognizant of that when you're asking them to do a multi step process like toilet training, where it's going to become really frustrating for you or the child if they have a long list of tasks to accomplish in the bathroom, but their brain is not cognitively ready to take on that many steps in a direction in a row. And that can create frustration for yourself and the child all at the same time. Consistently dry diapers. That doesn't mean that every single time your child goes, they tell you, or that they are staying dry the entire day. Obviously, we want our children to be well hydrated. Um, it's more referring to your child isn't having a bowel movement or urinating the second that their body feels that sensation. Consistent dry diapers shows that they're able to hold their bladder a little bit longer because they're recognizing the feeling, whether it's consciously or not. They're noticing that they have to urinate, have to have a bowel movement, um, or that their body isn't reacting to that very small stimulus of maybe having to urinate. Um, they're being more aware of what their body is telling them. So consistent dry diapers doesn't necessarily mean that they are dry the entire day other than going on the potty, but it does mean that maybe in the 2 hour stretch between diaper changes at your child's school, they're staying dry until they're either going to the bathroom or it's been a significant amount of time. The last and what I think is the most important out of all of these indicators is self-help skills. Um, the biggest ones being able to undress and dress yourself. Um, the child doesn't have to have full mastery over these skills. We don't need them to be able to tie their shoes and zip up zippers. Um, but for a child to feel successful and independent in potty training, which is what we're hoping to go for in all of this, they need to feel confident in those self-help skills. So being able to pull up and take down your pants, being able to put on shoes and socks and take off shoes and socks, being able to take off pants and then flip them back around so that you can put them back on carefully. Um, Being able to take a wet pull up or a wet diaper or a wet pair of underwear off and switch into a new pair. And these self-help skills are things that you can be working on even if your child has zero interest in the bathroom. They're just good life skills to have anyway. The thought process I usually go with when I'm working with my children on these self-help skills is the idea that I will always help them. I'm their teacher. I'm there to make sure that they're safe and have what they need, but I will also always ask them to try. So for some younger children just starting out, trying is taking their sock back out of their shoe and getting their thumbs inside of it. And maybe their toes never go in the sock or they're never be able to pull it up. But I really build up that interaction. Oh, I see how you put your thumbs in your socks. You were trying to pull them on your toes. You're working so hard to learn how to do that all on your own. Um, those little successes in those situations really build up an appropriate level of interaction and goodwill around going to the bathroom. But it also means that nothing is tied completely to the toilet. Um, Again, I keep coming back to potty training can have a lot of emotions tied, and a lot of people have a lot of opinions about it. Um, and children can feel that. If it's really stressful for you, it's going to be stressful for your child. So, a small way to break it down is start off with the self help skills. Can your child do their shoes, socks, pants on their own? Can they get soap? Can they wash their hands? Can they pull the toilet seat down? Can they flush the toilet? These are all skills that you can be working on, whether or not your child has any interest in actually toilet training or whether or not they really have any of the other indicators. Self help skills and communication skills are always a great spot to start. The factors that influence a child's readiness um, can be a lot of things. Just like being an adult, you never quite know what a change in your day to day environment um, is going to do to the rest of your life, or what small changes can really end up having big impacts on the things that you do from day to day. So, have there been any changes in the child's household? Family members coming and going, moving to a different house, remodeling in a house, if you've had an, uh, a change in the type of home that you're living in, whether you're sharing more spaces than you used to, the amount of private space that a child may have available to them. All of these things can impact their readiness. Um, in that same regard, changes in the child's school. Were they recently moved to a different classroom? Um, for older children, has there been any gap where you were out for any certain amount of time? Has the child had a change in teachers? Um, has the child been the youngest in the classroom and a lot of friends have gone on to preschool and now they're one of the older children in the classroom? All of these things can really impact when a child feels confident in practicing those potty training skills. Um, is your child just generally in a negative phase? Negative feels like a strong word there, but I think it's also really applicable to what we know about adult life. There's times in our life where we're really ready for a new challenge and change and to tackle something new and exciting. And there are times where that is the least enticing sounding undertaking is to pick up something new. So are you already having a lot of power struggles with your child? Um, are you can't pick out clothes every day because it turns into this big roundabout every morning? Or is your child already having a hard time following your directions when it comes to different transitions during the day? There's a lot of things that you need to keep in mind just about, is your child in the headspace to take on something new? And that doesn't mean that you completely drop potty training just because something changes in a child, but you do need to understand that their environment has an effect on them, just like it has an effect on the rest of us. If you just got a new job, you probably wouldn't take on three new hobbies at the same time either. because you be in flux and wanting to really hone in on those things that you can take care of. It's the same thing for kids. If they've got a lot of other stuff going on, uh, whether that's great stuff like are you going on a couple vacations, or is the child going to get to be a part of a different summer camp or a different program? Um, or is the child really in the headspace to take on something new? Those are all important things to keep in mind. The last one, are you ready to begin the toilet learning process? Um, and that doesn't mean like, have you read all the potty training books? Have you watched my webinar 6 times? Um, have you read every article any parent has ever written ever? No. What it really means is, are you guys going on a vacation in 2 weeks, or going to see family, and you know you're going to spend a lot of time in a car? Probably not a great time to be potty training if you're going to take a cross country trip and have to worry about where you're going to stop um, to let your child use the bathroom. Do you know that you have a big project going on at work, or you are working multiple jobs and know that you don't have a lot of downtime at home right now? Um, then maybe it's not the time to get involved into a learning process that really has a lot of ups and downs and a lot of natural ebb and flow where kids are super into it and then all of a sudden want nothing to do with it. Um, are you ready to maybe kind of give up some of your thoughts on how toilet learning was going to go? Maybe you had a niece or nephew that um, it took months and months for the child to feel ready being potty trained, and their caregivers and parents had a lot of feelings invested in that, and you were part of their outlet, and so you understand what an emotional undertaking it was for them. If you're not ready for a big task, especially in 2020, which hopefully the video ages well, but in 2020, it's not everybody's time to pick up a new project. Um, so make sure that you're ready too. This is a collaborative process. And as long as you don't make it a big deal for the child on whether or not they're fully potty trained, the child isn't going to feel that crazy pressure associated to it. And that's a great time to really focus on those self help skills and the things that you can do something about. So maybe you're not ready for your child to be running around in underwear at home because you know you aren't going to have time to clean up 3 or 4 accidents in a day, but you can sit a couple extra times with your child and help them take their shoes on and off and really work on that skill. Or when you hear them in the bathroom or changing them, letting them do the whole hand washing process on their own. When you do have a small amount of time, sit in the bathroom and read a story with them. You don't necessarily need to devote a full weekend of extremely focused potty training. It works for some people. It doesn't work for a lot of people as well. Um, so as long as you're keeping those indicators in mind, there's a lot of things that you can work on and really develop a mastery of with your child that in turn is going to make when they really cognitively understand that they have to go, they're going to be able to go into the bathroom and go and not have to worry about needing your assistance to take off clothing or to help them sit on the actual toilet. Um, Potty chairs are great, but it's not always super feasible for everyone to have a potty chair that takes up space in a bathroom or sits openly in a house. Um, some people have the space for that, some people don't. And that's not something that is indicative of success for a child. So, some strategies for success. Um, Starting early with the self-help skills. I work in a classroom that typically consists of children from birth or 6 weeks old to age 3. Um, and self-help skills are started as early as possible, from helping the child eat with utensils, cleaning up after meals. We have 18-month old children that clean up their plate after breakfast and dump out their milk and put their spoon in a bin and get a washcloth for their hands. Now, believe me, it's just as messy as it sounds. Lots of spilled milk and spilled plates, but they're skills that they then develop a competency in just by repetition and being given the opportunity to. So find the self-help skills that you can really hone in on at home. Um, Maybe working with a lidless cup at the table is something you want to leave for us at school, but at home you can easily work on having your child work on pulling their pants down before a diaper change, and then after the diaper change allowing them to pull them back up. And that's something you can start on at a year old, just um, and making sure that the child knows that you're there to support them. They aren't a ship amongst themselves, um, that you are standing right next to them, you're watching what they're doing, and you will always help when they need it. But asking them a little more consistently to try those things on their own. Eventually, when you walk into the bathroom, they're just going to start pulling their pants down because kids do well with routine. And consistency will allow those self help skills to just become a natural part of what they do. Um, this is a picture of a daily sheet that can be used in an infant toddler setting where we see a lot of um, potty training or toilet training taking place. Um, and this is a space where we would just record when the child went to the bathroom, if they were wet, dry, had a bowel movement, sat on the toilet, or peed or pooped, either way, in the toilet. Um, and we use this obviously so that parents know that their child was safe and well taken care of and had a diaper change consistently throughout the day. But we can also then use that as a tool with parents to say, oh, look, it looks like he really is staying dry in the morning and he's really only wet after he goes to sleep and wakes back up. Maybe we can start working on the hours that he's awake wearing underwear at school, because it seems to be something that he's doing consistently. And having the information of a record, which it doesn't need to be a fully written daily sheet. One of the easiest is just to stick a post-it note on your bathroom door and write it down, or a piece of masking tape that you can just stick somewhere and write it down. And at the end of the day, you take a quick look at it. And if there's, after a couple days, you can look for a pattern and see if there's anything that you notice. It can also then help you know what time of day you should really focus in on. A lot of people know because your kids are like consistent poopers and they wake up in the morning or every day at 3 o'clock, it's going down, whatever it is. Those same kind of patterns are helpful in potty training so that we can understand when children are having those sensations. Offering a choice is huge for anything with children. The more you turn this, the more you turn toilet training into you're going to do this because insert parent name here says so, the more you're giving children the green light to turn this into a really fun power struggle with their parent. So ask your child, especially early on. What we do in the classroom is if it's a child that is old enough to have a pretty good grasp of their self-help skills, so they're able to pull their pants down, take off their diaper, throw it in the trash can. I'll ask that child, do you want to sit on the potty? And they can say yes or no. If they say yes, great, they go over and do it. If they say no, okay, either I have that child put on a pull-up or a diaper, or I help them put on a diaper, depending on what they wear. You can, if it's a child a little longer into the process and they need to use the restroom, offering a choice can look like asking the child if they want to go to the bathroom now or in 5 minutes. And the fun secret there is most potty training age children do not know how long 5 minutes is. So 5 minutes can be a minute to 15 minutes, depending on what you feel as a parent. Now, obviously, we want to keep things consistent and honest with our children, but it is a way of offering a choice to a child where kind of the same thing. If you were in the most exciting moment of your show, but you had to pee and you couldn't find the remote, you'd wait it out and watch that next part and then run off and do and take care of your business once you were ready to. Sometimes for children, we expect to say jump and them to say how high. And that's just not really how it works. So sometimes offering that choice of, I know that this child generally needs to go use the bathroom around 10 a.m. So at 9:45, I'm going to ask them, do you want to go? Do you have to go to the bathroom? They can say yes or no. If they say yes, great, they're going in right then anyway. If they say no, you can say, okay, do you want to go in 1 minute or in 5 minutes? You're still offering the child a choice. They still have control over their body and the situation, but you're still meeting that need in the fact that, like, regardless, you need to use the restroom or we need to check your diaper. So we're offering them a choice that is appropriate, right? It's not appropriate for a child to decide that they want to sit in a poop filled diaper because they're not interested in going into the bathroom. That's a safety and cleanliness concern that myself as a teacher need to take care of. But they can surely decide whether they want to go in 1 minute or in 5 minutes after they finish building the tower that they were working with, or where they can ask me to save something for them. It's just giving them a little more autonomy and making it not such a disruptive thing in their day, letting them be a part of the process. Establish a routine, kind of like I said, you'll have a general idea of how often your child may need to go in and use the bathroom. So we kind of start off with every 2 hours when we do our typical diaper changes. Um, we'll ask children who are in any sort of process in the potty training if they need to, if they would like to sit on the toilet or not. They're getting a diaper change in that instance either way, but giving them the opportunity to go in. And that's something that then happens every 2 hours. So throughout a day, a child 3 or 4 times is going to get to practice the process of going into the bathroom and using the toilet, whether they choose to sit or not. Um, but understanding that when I go into the bathroom, I pull down my pants, I take off my diaper, I throw it in the trash can, I sit or I do not sit, I get a new diaper, I pull my pants up, I go get soap, wash my hands. If you have a routine every time, then you can lay expectations every time. If what happens in the bathroom is different every time you go in, the child isn't going to know what to expect. They're going to wait for your cues, or they're just going to choose to do whatever they wanted to do in the bathroom in the first place. So establishing a routine gives the child parameters in which to be successful, and it also gives you some room to be able to hold a child accountable to their choices. It also holds you accountable to their choices, but that's a whole other conversation. Consistency is key. And this doesn't mean the second you go to underwear, you never look back, never turn around. Regression happens in children all the time, especially when it comes to potty training. Sometimes because of environmental factors or things that are going on in the child's life. Sometimes their brain is just developing and the switch flipped and they're just not into it right now, or it scares them for whatever reason right now. So being consistent doesn't necessarily mean everything happens exactly the same way every time, but you can be consistent with your messaging, right? So one that I kind of go with in my classroom is if a child wants to flush the toilet, then they can. They just need to sit on the toilet first and work on going to the bathroom. It's a realistic expectation for me because we don't want to be wasting water by flushing the toilet constantly. Um, but it has a clear line of expectations, right? If you sit on the toilet, then you get to flush the toilet, right? It's a clear line of logic going through. If we go into the bathroom and it's the child's job to pull down their pants and pull them up, then I should have that expectation for that child every time. Again, doesn't mean I abandon a child and look over my shoulder and say, it's your job, not my problem. I'm there with the child. I'm speaking to them through it. I'm talking to them about ways that they can solve the problem and figure it out together. But I am being consistent with my expectations, right? If it's their job to put their shoes on one time during the day, but the other two times I put them on their feet. And that time of day that they actually are in charge of it keeps changing from morning, afternoon, evening. Then I can't be frustrated when the child doesn't want to put on their shoes by themselves, because the expectation I've set is that I'm going to do it for them, right? So just being consistent in your messaging. And that's also can be like, in potty training, we can get really, really wrapped up in praise. Like, oh, you're such a big boy. You're such a good girl. You went pee on the potty. What we kind of want to do is make sure that we're really taking um, that level of praise out of it, because we're talking about a natural bodily function, and we're talking about a pretty complicated multi-step process for the children to work through. So if we really tie a lot of big words like good and big and special, all those things to the bathroom, then we're also creating the converse of like, if I don't pee in the toilet, am I bad? If I have an accident, does that make me a baby? Um, and we can really inadvertently end up giving this messaging to children that can be really negative, while all we were trying to do was amp them up and be excited about going to the bathroom. Um, so where getting excited is great if you want to have a sing song and a dance after you have success in the bathroom, or you read a story together, something that's really interaction based, like awesome. Find those ways to make it connected to something that is good and positive for the child. But we really want to steer clear um, from making the child feel like their worth is associated to how well they do with using the bathroom. It can be really damaging for children to relate something that maybe they don't have any control over. We might think they do. We might think that oh, he always goes and hides behind something. He knows he's pooping. Well, maybe he doesn't. Maybe he just knows something strange is happening with his body and he's having a natural response and he's trying to go hide. Um, or maybe he pooped once in the potty and it really hurt. And now that's what he has associated with it. Um, and he's trying to work through that kind of an experience. And they, whether or not it is going to be painful the next time is really irrelevant. If there's this big buildup around it, but it's also something that scared them, it just creates a really interesting, not super healthy emotional reaction to it. So getting excited about using the bathroom is great. Uh, you did it. I love the way you listened to your body. You knew that you needed to pee and you went into the bathroom. Wow, it's cool to see you are able to do that. And then the response has to be really similar if it doesn't work out. Oh, it looks like you had an accident. Come on into the bathroom. Let's change it. Oh, I see you. It looks like you're standing behind that chair because you're pooping. Do you want to go poop on the potty, or do you want to finish out here and let me know when you're done? Either way, you're making the child aware of the situation and what happened. So I'm acknowledging, oh, you had an accident. You peed in your pants. We're calling it an accident. So a child has an understanding that it wasn't necessarily the ideal outcome. But we're also not putting a lot of emotion towards it. I'm not sad or mad that the child had an accident. And that goes back to, am I ready to potty train, right? If I just got a brand new white couch, and I am super, super concerned about anything getting on the couch, it's not a great time to start potty training your child, because accidents are super, super common and really, really natural, even after you feel like your child has mastered the skill. So make sure that you're setting yourself up for success there as well. Reassure the child that they are still good and loved, whether they use a diaper or the toilet. Let them know that there's still so many things that they're great at, even if this is a thing that feels scary right now or that they're not into. And accept where your child is. You may want to be done buying diapers, but if your child isn't there cognitively, And I don't mean that anybody's rushing through potty training uh, because they are solely worried about the financial burden of it, but it is a lot of money to buy diapers. So I very much understand the want to move out of the phase quickly. But if you're going to make your child feel really, really upset for an extended period of time, and you're going to create really hard interactions for you when you're at home, accepting the fact that your child may not be ready to wear underwear, and that you can work on all those other skills and communication and body awareness ideas, it is really, really a positive way to move forward. um, Dressing for success is buy your child a blazer. No, just kidding. Dress for success means give your child clothing that they're comfortable in and that they can manage, right? Overalls on kids look adorable, but when it's time for them to take them off to go to the bathroom, most children really, really struggle. Um, Converse high tops are so adorable on kids. When you're potty training as a child, I have yet to see a toddler successfully get themselves in a pair of high top Converse because I have a hard time doing it. Again, cutest thing ever, really hard when it comes to potty training. So loose fitting clothing, clothing with elastic, trying to avoid a lot of zippers and buttons. And if their clothing, if that's something that's important to you to have in their clothing, then um, the understanding that it's going to be harder for your child. They may have more accidents. And of course, these are skills that we want them to develop, and they will figure out how to undo a button on their jeans or how to untie a pair of shoes. But in turn, if you as the adult are feeling a lot of frustration about these items of clothing getting wet, or lots of accidents being reported from school or accidents at home, keep in mind that the easier it is for them to manage their clothing, the easier it'll be to be successful potty training. Make your bathroom space make sense, and this is as achievable as your space allots. But just make sure that if you have um, if your child is using a small potty chair, that it's somewhere consistently that they know that they can go to every time. Don't really move it around the house. Make sure it's some, or if you do, it always goes to the same spot. So when we're in the basement, it's in this spot in the corner. When we're in the living room, it's this spot in the corner, whatever it is. If you're not working with a ton of space and a potty chair doesn't make a lot of sense, have a stool so that your child can climb up on the toilet, making sure that they can also reach the soap and the sink and be able to operate it on their own. Um, Again, that independence and the self-help is really going to make your life a lot easier. So if you set up your space that your child can function easily in it, it's really going to save you a lot of time and heartache. Setting a timer is super useful, just because time gets away from us all the time. And it's a really great way for not only you to give yourself reminders, but also to give your child reminders. Then very quickly, they will know that that timer going off means that they need to go in um, and try using the restroom. Whether they have to go or not is irrelevant. Just that they're getting used to that interval. A lot of times when children are starting to potty train, we talk about every 45 minutes to an hour, just asking them to go in and try to sit on the toilet, do those self-help skills, and wash their hands and come back out. So that consistently they're given the opportunity, and they can start kind of training their body of like, oh, this is the opportunity that I have to urinate. I can sit down and do it now. And encouragement, not rewards. I kind of touched on this before. I know when I was a kid, I for sure remember having a Little Mermaid sticker chart that I got a sticker for every time I peed, which is great and awesome until you're somewhere where you don't have an Ariel sticker, or that I've been getting an Ariel sticker every time, and the store didn't have Ariel stickers. So now I don't want to pee because I have a Paw Patrol sticker instead of a Little Mermaid sticker, and wasn't my reward. Or you really want to avoid tying food in as any sort of reward. Food is sustenance, food is healthy, food is tasty. Food isn't a reward for something that can have children develop a not so healthy relationship with food. Food nourishes us. It's not a means to an end for completing a task. So being super encouraging when a child goes into the bathroom and does everything that you ask them to do self-help wise, and they sat on the toilet and they didn't pee, but they sat, they gave it a shot. Encourage them. Oh, it was so cool to see you go in, do all your jobs, sit down and try, and know that your body didn't have to go. That's awesome work. I want to see that you can wash your hands and come on out. Building encouragement up around it. Or like, oh, you know what? It was so cool to see that you knew how to pee in the potty yesterday. Maybe you can do it again today. We'll see. Building up those positive interactions, but not putting a lot of weight on it, right? There's no, you were bad because you didn't pee in the potty. I'm frustrated that you had so many accidents today. Why didn't you go to the bathroom when you felt yourself needing to go? Only babies pee in a diaper, things like that. Things that in reality, a lot of people have done in the past, and I'm sure have had levels of success with in the past. You never know for your individual child if that's going to set up some really negative association with what you're trying to do. And the second potty training turns into a power struggle, it gets immensely more difficult. And what I mean when I say a power struggle is those times where you are arguing with a 2-year-old and you fully understand that you are the adult and that this child has been on the earth for 24 months and couldn't clearly have a better understanding of the situation than you do, but you're still in an argument or you're still in some sort of you need to be in the bathroom by the time I count to 5. And then all of a sudden it's not about whether or not the child's body needs to go to the bathroom. It's whether the child is willing to follow through with a command that you've laid out before them. And we all know in toddler preschool land, that can be one of the most exciting moments that we give children is the time to really exert some power and some ownness over a situation. So be encouraging and leave the stickers to me in the late 80s. Here's just a quick list of some clothing that makes potty training more difficult. Overalls just have a lot of buttons. They can be frustrating for kids, especially if your child is a completionist or a perfectionist and really, really wants to do things by themselves. All those buttons and straps can become super frustrating for a child, especially if they feel really good about being able to accomplish those tasks. Whereas maybe they can get a zipper on their coat, but they can't get a 4-button fly on a pair of pants. Pants with buckles, snaps, buttons, anything that really takes those fine tactile motor skills. Those aren't the things we're really working on. We can work on those in so many other ways. As your fine motor skills get stronger with writing and moving your body, those things will kind of come. But they can be really frustrating to children who say a child is typically super successful taking their pants up and down. Now they have a pair of pants that have a button on them. They can't figure it out. You can start off with a certain level of frustration that you didn't really need. One-piece outfits, onesies, anything that you would have a hard time with in a public restroom is usually on that list. Tight-fitting pants, especially if your child's going back and forth between maybe they are wearing underwear for most of the day, but wear a diaper at nap time because they don't have full control while they're asleep. Pants that might fit over underwear won't fit over a diaper. And as an adult woman, I still have trouble with tights. So I would guess that you can kind of understand that one. But anything that's super hard to manage or takes a lot of muscle control is usually things that aren't super helpful when you're potty training. Some of the common challenges when children are constipated, um, it hurts, right? And it doesn't feel fun. The child might not even know what's happening. They just know they're in pain and their stomach hurts. And sometimes that movement can feel like having a bowel movement, and it can cause some concern. It can also make children more nervous than they typically would be to go to the bathroom. Um, it can also mean that your child is doing a lot of fake out dry runs to the bathroom or saying they've pooped when they haven't. Um, Understand that it's a really complex feeling for children, and aligning that to this hurts because my bowels are working and I will be okay, but it hurts for now. Eventually, I'll need to poop, is a thought process we can have as an adult, but a child just knows that they're hurting and it doesn't feel good. And sometimes it can be frustrating for a child, so they may not want to use the potty. It may hurt, so they don't want to sit or poop because it doesn't feel good. Um, and these are just times that we really have to be accepting and support, right? Like if your child is having diarrhea or constipated and all of a sudden doesn't have the same control over their bowels before, it's not a shameful thing for your child to need to wear a diaper or a pull up for the day to feel comfortable and letting their body do what naturally needs to happen. And just speak to your child, let them know sometimes your body really needs to poop and it's not able to, and it can really, really hurt. And we'll drink some juice and lots of water and help you feel better. And if you feel like you have to go, we'll go right to the potty. But if you need to go in your diaper, that's okay too. Um, a child can't help whether they're constipated or not. So we shouldn't really push it back on them then to all of a sudden be in charge of that decision making. Childhood regression is just super common and happens in really every stage of childhood, but especially when it comes to potty training. A lot of times, young children will be super into the idea, want to live in the bathroom, read 10 books every time, be in there anytime you want to be in there. And then all of a sudden, a coin flips, and the next day, you expect them to follow you into the bathroom, and now they don't want to, or they're scared, or they start having accidents all of a sudden when you thought you had kind of put it under control. It's super natural for a child, super natural. It's very natural for a child to go through regression phases. And that calm affect and understanding, that calm, like, presentation of the child's worth has nothing to do whether or not they use the potty. Um, those regressions will ebb and flow naturally. Um, the more consistent you can be with your potty plans while not assigning a lot of judgment or blame to the child's decision or the outcome, the better when you're dealing with a regression. And just understanding that it's super common. And if it extends for several months, then you can follow up with your pediatrician and ask and make sure that there's nothing that's going on that is outside of the realm of just toilet training. But sometimes you're going to take two steps forward and one step back with toilet training. Um, Daytime versus nighttime, a child has conscious control during the day at a certain point and maybe doesn't at nighttime. Um, I believe in being as consistent as you possibly can. So I like the idea of once you're in underwear, you rock it out with kind of underwear, unless there's extenuating circumstances like long road trip that you know you won't be able to stop for, um, constipation, diarrhea, those things that are kind of outside of the child's control. Same thing with daytime versus nighttime. No child is choosing to have an accident in the middle of the night. Sometimes they're rolling over, waking up, and their body has to go, and they don't have the impulse control yet to stop. Sometimes their body works while they're going to sleep or not quite actually in a deep sleep cycle. Um, Sometimes children are used to being able to hang out and rest once they've actually been awake and are used to being in a diaper and they can just kind of stay there. Um, so be as consistent as you possibly can. plastic sheets to throw underneath an extra sheet on a child's bed is a super useful tool so that you're not cleaning a bunch of linen every time. But accidents definitely do happen. And sometimes people feel more comfortable with their child being in a diaper overnight or a pull up overnight or during nap times. This is perfectly acceptable. Just be open and tell your child what you're doing. While you're awake, you wear underwear because your body's awake and it knows what it feels like when you have to go to the bathroom. And when you're sleeping, your body doesn't know what it feels like just quite yet. So you'll wear a diaper while you sleep and underwear while you're awake. Just be consistent. Try not to go back and forth a million times. Now, if you're really in a regression and you're like, this kid has not used the toilet successfully, even though we've been doing it for a month, now they just can't do it, that's a good time to back off. Go try diapers again, unless you're willing to change those accidents frequently. I think that's a big thing to keep in mind too. A typically developing child while potty training is going to have a lot of accidents. And that doesn't necessarily just mean one or two in a day. When you're early on in those stages, it might be three or four or five while they're figuring out what it feels like to have that control over their body. So, always having availability to extra changes of clothes that your child can put on and off easily, um, being consistent with your messages, and make sure you're still being um, very positive and accepting of the experience, whether it's necessarily going the way you plan to or not. Um, Sometimes children just refuse to go, just like children just refuse to do plenty of things. I think of a child in my class who once a week decides that it's just the day that they can't do anything related to their shoes or socks. They've never seen a sock before. They've never thought of putting on a shoe. Now, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, they throw them on quickly and go about their day. But this child, just for whatever reason, um, that's an interaction that they choose to have. And the same thing happens for going potty. The child may just not want to. And as annoying as that can be, pushing them and forcing them to do it is creating a dynamic where you really can get into some of those down and dirty power struggles where you're both in the bathroom crying at the end of the night because you've come to this really hard moment that you just can't work through. So when a child refuses to go, let them refuse to go and then tell them, okay, we're going to try again in 10 minutes. The child's still in charge of their body, they're still in charge of their choices, but you are letting them have some choice in the matter. If they really refuse to go and they won't put on and they have underwear on, you can let them know, like, if you're not going to choose to sit on the potty, I need to put you in a diaper so that I know that your body will stay safe and we will keep pee and poop from being all around our house. Be as logical as you can, right? Poop on the potty or you don't get a sticker isn't a real logical connection because, okay, fine, then I won't take a sticker. Like it's easy. It's an easy adjustment for a child to make, and it doesn't have a natural linear thought process. Whereas if I sit on the potty and can go by myself and keep myself dry, I get to help pick out what kind of underwear I wear next week. That's logical, right? I'm showing that I am comfortable using the bathroom. I can do it consistently. Since I can do that, should start wearing underwear, and I get to be a part of choosing which ones I wear. Whether that is from your box of hand-me-downs that you were given from a friend or from an older child, or whether they get to go pick out a brand new pair. Children like the choice. It's less about the actual taking it out of a package or anything like that. And then when a child will use the toilet at home, but not at school, or the inverse of that as well, home and school are different, and the dynamics that they have can be really different too. So I think the best thing is just to be really communicative to your teacher at what your process looks like at home. And then you can ask your teacher or your child's caregiver to communicate what it looks like at school, right? So at home, maybe every hour you have time to go into the bathroom, sit and read a story, let the child sit on a toilet until they have success or feel like they're done, and then do the process again. At school, if your child's in a preschool class, they might be one of 20 children, and a teacher isn't able to go and sit and read a story every time. So, where at home, that child has a very relaxed setting to start building those skills, and it's wonderful. It's a lot different from the experience that they have at school. Or, in the opposite, at school, you might have a younger child who is watching all these older children complete these tasks, and they might be really motivated to complete them as well at school because they see other children doing it. But at home, you're their baby, and they know that this is a connection time, and that mom always picks me up and puts me on the changing table. Um, or mom gets that mom, dad, parent, grandma, whoever it is, gets that twitch in their eye when we start talking about the bathroom. And I think that's kind of funny. So I'm going to tell her I'm not doing it today. Um, Either way, just being communicative with your child and with anyone else who's involved in your child's process um, can give you a lot of insight in maybe why some of their patterns are different at school and at home. And sometimes it's just about building up consistency. And when that child feels comfortable doing it at home or at school, they will. They're showcasing that they have the skills by being able to do it in one setting or the other. Um, but is it at school you have short potties and at home you have a tall potty? Or at home your kid's really excited about using the big toilet and thinks the little one at school is kind of lame. It could be a lot of other things. Or it's intimidating to be in the bathroom with other children. Um, there's just a lot of different things that could be going on. So I'd say communication with a caregiver is the best way to try to figure out some of that nuance between home and school. If your child spends a lot of time at childcare, you're really going to make sure that you're partnering with your child's school on this process. Again, it's your child and you know them the best out of anybody in the world, but also understanding that that child care worker or your child's teacher, early childhood educator has probably been through this process with a lot of other children, so they may have some tips and tricks with things that really worked for them that maybe you haven't experienced before, and vice versa. So I think being open to different ideas and an understanding of what is really appropriate for your child at their certain age is important. Some key questions to ask your child care provider: what's the center's philosophy on potty training? At my center, we go through it very in a very individualistic way where we think each child potty trains at their own time. And so there really isn't a cutoff time between infant and toddler classroom and a preschool classroom for when you would need to be potty trained. Now, some centers, because of the way that they're licensed, a child by the age of 3 who's entering their preschool has to be potty trained. And that's just a rule that that center has in place. So that's why it's a really good thing to get information on what your center needs early. Um, I would say the most inclusive way to go about training really is allowing the child to do it on their own time. But I also very much understand that that is not the setting that some early education providers have, and that some schools, it's just a part of their program, and it's important to them. So know that early on when you get your child into the school. What does potty training look like there? Do they are there bathrooms accessible in the classroom, or is your child going to really need to work on being able to hold it until you can go down the hall to a shared bathroom? Is the center willing to change multiple accidents while a child is potty training? Um, or do they have a strict rule about bodily fluids and accidents? Um, do they have a hard and fast age that they begin the process with the child? Like I said, I don't love when there's an exact age put on it because every child develops differently. There's certainly benchmarks that we expect children to hit, but no two children potty train exactly the same way. But ask your child care center what indicators they are looking for. Are they solely waiting on the go ahead from home to give it a shot? Are there things they're already doing at school? Could you ask them to help your child with some of those self help skills, which in reality is really useful for their teacher because they'll be able to be a little more independent in some of those things? Just being clear and open and finding out good information about what your child care center believes in when it comes to potty training. How does the center deal with accidents? So at my center, we send home bowel movement accidents, and we have a washer and dryer in the classroom. So anything that it has uh, urine or dirt or anything that can be taken care of in a traditional washer dryer, we can wash at school. But is your center sending clothes home every day? Then you really need to be on top of making sure that you have clothes going back in every day. If you're getting 3 bags of clothes that have where your child had an accident the day before, assume then that they also need 3 more changes of clothes for the next day, especially underwear, pants, socks, things that are normally impacted when a child would have an accident. Um, and also, it's just a good idea to get a teacher's feelings for it. Is this a teacher that is feeling very sensitive in the potty training process and is really willing to work with your child and start very early on those self-help skills and becoming acclimated to the bathroom? Or is it a center where the bathroom is down the hall and you go for emergencies and diaper changing times? And then what you're doing at home maybe need to be a little more intensive than what they can do at school, or vice versa. Is your child at school for 9 hours a day and the primary amount of potty training is happening at school? Um, just find out what kind of language they use around talking about accidents. Let them know that you really don't want your child to feel like it's a big deal when they have an accident, um, that you'd rather just have them uh, learn how to take care of what they need and move on at a certain point. Um, and just understand and kind of let them know that obviously potty training is very important to you, but that you're really trying to partner with what they see working for your child and what you see working for your child. Um, it's also really good to find out what procedures, routines, techniques the center will not use. So a lot of people really go with the idea of when you're potty training, you should be without a diaper. And at most a pair of loose fitting pants so that you can feel those sensations. And while this might be something that is really useful in a home setting, it's not safe in a child care setting to have a child moving throughout the space without a barrier. Um, if a teacher would miss an accident, where at home it might be you watching that one potty training child and being able to see if they have an accident. At school, if a child is playing with blocks, gets up and moves and plays with another section, and then we see them 2 minutes after the accident, they haven't been sitting in the soiled clothes for long, but they have been moving around the space. Um, and it's really important for us to maintain a safe and clean space. Um, Same thing, as I mentioned before, our center has really strong feelings about rewards for potty training and especially giving food as a reward. So your personal philosophy at home is your personal philosophy. and it is your child, and you are fully in the right to make whatever decisions you need to make surrounding toilet training. But it's just not something that we feel we can safely do and develop in a positive way for all children, and for that to actually work in a classroom. Maybe your center doesn't do pull ups. Some places have diapers or you're in underwear, and they, depending on maybe how often you change classrooms throughout the school, it's just something programmatically that they don't take time for. These are all just important things to know to make sure that your personal philosophy for potty training lines up with what they're doing, or that you at least can come to a place of understanding as to home and school are very different. Some things that you have the opportunity to do at school, you don't have the opportunity to do at home, and vice versa. But the key thing to understand is making sure that you're all in a position that you know that you are all trying to do what is best for the child and to help them naturally progress through this change. So, in summary, the big indicators that your child is ready is being in that age range of anywhere from 18 months to 4 years old. Some children start later, some start earlier. Focus on their level of interest, make going into the bathroom something exciting or at least something neutral. It's not scary, it's not a circus day. It's somewhere that you go when you need to use the bathroom and it's safe. Um, can they follow directions? Are they consistently staying dry? Can they do a lot of those self help skills on their own? Are they able to follow a multiple step direction? Um, these are all things that will help you understand, and can kind of alleviate a little of the like, they're turning two, I got to get ready for potty training, they're turning two. At two, they might be ready to take the Velcro off their shoes and put their shoes on and off, or they might be ready to fully work on actually sitting on the toilet. There is no milestone age that you hit where you have to start potty training. It's more looking for those ideas that show that your child is ready. Be as consistent and as encouraging and accepting as you can in this process. When you set up a routine, follow it consistently, and then take some data. If it's not working for you after a week or two, then switch it up. But if you're doing something different every day, the child is never going to develop a routine and they're not going to feel safe in following through with that. And then keep in mind that regression is normal. It's very infrequently a linear line from diapers to fully toilet trained. Um, there's a lot of taking steps forward and coming back. There's a lot of emotions involved in it. Life happens and things come up that get in your way or that speed up a process. Um, taking the judgment out of potty training is really my biggest piece of advice. Your child will potty train. And if they aren't able to develop those skills that they need outside of potty training, then it's up to your child care center or you as a parent to notice that maybe there's some things this child might need some support around, outside of these skills. But letting your child come about these skills naturally, I promise, makes it such a less stressful experience. A lot of families that I interact with go from maybe a full year of just self help skills, trying different things, letting them go into the bathroom, letting them say no when they don't want to go. And then one day they just kind of walk in and do it on their own and come out and let you know that they did it. And that's because you've taken the time to build the supports around it and not made it so much about urine actually hitting the water. When you can take some of those big feelings out of it and just make it another process in your child's life, you wouldn't scold them for not being able to walk. So you wouldn't scold the child for not being able to control their bowels right away. So just keep it as positive as you can and don't let yourself get bogged down with all the parent shaming that can be around potty training. Whatever works best for your family and your child and makes you feel comfortable and supported, and your child feels safe and knows that their worth is not tied to whether or not they can complete this task. Whatever works for your family is the best way to go about potty training. Um, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to reach out and contact me. Like I said, I don't know everything about potty training, but I have helped many, many, many children through the process and partnered with a lot of families through it step by step. So while every child is different, there are a lot of milestones and check-ins that we can definitely troubleshoot if you need more information. But that is everything that I have today. Thank you so much for your time. Again, I'm Emily Manahan from the A. Sophie Rogers School for Early Learning at the Schoenbaum Family Center. And thank you so much for spending some time with me today. Have a good one.